Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Whenever you're watching this, we're glad you're here. I'm not Naomi. That's Naomi. I'm Natasha. Names could get confusing, but board chair here and Naomi, our founder. And we're just sharing about beEmboldened right now. The impact of supporting the healing and prevention of spiritual abuse in 2025, what happened and what the kind of the highlights are. And then because of listeners like you, there's been an immense amount of generosity that has made this possible, where we've been able to reach thousands of survivors, even worldwide. So just want to kick off with Naomi sharing about, why we're having this conversation, why we're talking about beEmboldened, and why we're doing this live stream to begin with.
So your timing though for that name mistake is funny because, okay, everyone, literally Natasha and I had a call earlier today and I got our names confused and I told her, I was like, our names just start out too similar. I cannot handle this today. So apparently I passed that on and now she can't either. So the reason we want to do this again, so for anyone who's new or maybe just didn't catch this live stream last year, we did this last year as well. I think it was the first year, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken. And the reason I wanted to do it again is because, one, I think it's helpful to do a recap for anyone who is following along, has been, as well as anyone who's new. I just think it gives a good kind of reflection piece of what has been, as well as kind of where we're at and where we're going. I think it's of benefit potentially anyway. Feel free to give me feedback if you disagree. I think it's potentially helpful for those who engage with the organization as a survivor, as a loved one, someone with a church who's wanting to help with prevention, whatever that looks like. I think it's helpful, just informational of, again, where we've been, kind of where we're going, where we're at now, all of those different pieces. So I want to couch this conversation in that because whenever we're talking about end of year giving, generosity, any of these conversations, there's a lot that can come with that if you are a survivor of spiritual abuse. So I want to start there. Depending on who you are tuning into this, I would not have this conversation with you. It would be inappropriate. It would just be not, it just would not be the right timing, if ever. So this is something we're putting out to everyone. So if you are someone where you're like, this is triggering, this is so not, if anything is going to be mentioned about giving, generosity, end of year, nonprofit stuff, how it needs, what it needs to function kind of conversation, and that is not going to be good for you right now. If you still want to tune in because you're wanting to hear the updates and the vision, please, full permission, listen with those ears. I think it would still be wonderful for you to be a part of this so that you have those details. You're not the person that we would be then engaging with to talk about what some kind of partnership could look like. So I just want to be clear with that because we are going to be talking about our end of year campaign as well, with what our goals are for next year, as well as how we did with our goals that we had for this year and the supporters who had who made that possible. So hopefully that gives us a good start. Again, choose how you listen, from what perspective you want to listen. I think it at least has the possibility of being beneficial for everybody.
Yeah, thanks for framing that up, Naomi. I think it's super important going into these conversations, especially with the work that beEmboldened does, is to be trauma informed, to realize that key phrases, words, topics can be triggering for people, and to be sensitive to that. So we're glad you're here, and take away what is helpful and what is good, and leave the rest behind. So we are going to talk on the 2025 impact that happened this year, and how beEmboldened's come alongside survivors through some key milestones of over 1,600 hours of one-on-one mentoring with survivors, and 2 groundbreaking digital courses that launched that have been able to reach people around the world because of the ability to not be bound by a time zone. We had the first conference of its kind, which was an incredible safe space for healing, equipping, connection. That was amazing. We're going to talk more about that and what the future of that might be. And then online support groups really took off this year, which provided an amazing amount of community. And they were led by trained survivors who understand what people are going through. And just even that word community can be hard for people. And so to be able to create community for people where community is hard is just amazing. So that was a little bit of the overview of impact. Naomi, do you want to dive into any of that before we move forward?
Well, something I was thinking about in preparation for this live that we were gonna do today is, okay, I wanted to go back, of course, and look at what our goals were for the year, and then, like, how did that pan out? How did that land? I was like, "All right, it happened. We're there, y'all, like, we did it."
And
I
that is
can
something to
just
celebrate.
It is, yes, because sometimes too, I mean, we can set these goals and it's based on the need that we're seeing, but it doesn't mean that we're gonna actually do it in the time frame that we're hoping to. I think that's the biggest piece that I think just the most accepting of. I see different needs, I see different things that we're wanting to services we're gonna wanna create, infrastructure we're needing to build, team members we're needing to add, events that we want to have, things like that. All of these based on, again, what we're hearing from survivors, what we're hearing from churches, what we're hearing from family members. And yet, it's just the timeline of it. Things tend to take longer than not only than we would like it to necessarily, but even that we maybe would anticipate it takes, just with all the like nitty gritty like details that can go into things. So when I look at, okay, what's the goal for a year? I'm keeping that in mind. I'm trying to be realistic and reasonable about it, but it can still end up taking longer than I would anticipate. So with that being said, I was really pleased to look back and see, okay, I think we gauged this well this year. And some of it was kind of wild. Like we had a conference, I'm just like, okay, like we did actually do it. And it did go well. And we had incredible people come and be a part of it and take really big risks, or what would have felt like a really big risk. And of course, we're mitigating that as much as we could. And yet it still is to walk into a room of strangers, and it can be risky to feel unknown as well as to feel like, well, I'm here, so maybe some of my story is known. And that can also be incredibly scary. So when I look back, I think I'm really pleased with where we're at really I get confused on how to count us as an organization. So inception, when I first reached out to our webmaster and we started building a website and all of that, it was June. We had our first board meeting in July of 2020. So in that regard, we're 5.5 years old. We got our 501c3 nonprofit federal status in May of 2021. So if that's the date, we're not quite 5 years old. We're about 4.5 years. So I'm like, I don't know. We'll just average it out to five. So we're about 5 years old. So it's been good to look back at this year. I don't want to get any more of the specifics right now because I know we'll go through them kind of in an order that hopefully makes sense. But yeah, we're chugging along at a pace that when I look back actually feels kind of
Mhm.
crazy.
Yeah. No, and that, I'm so glad you brought that up too, Naomi, because I mean, we did this last year. We had our goals, and then, unless you have a, memory of a steel trap, you may not remember what those were. And so it's amazing to look back and see, like, actually this happened. And really it's possible in great part because of the generosity of people who are giving towards this work, because the reality is a lot of people that we serve, just as one example, I mean, a nonprofit is hard in general, but a lot of people we serve like are coming to us financially disadvantaged because of the abuse they've suffered. And we want to pay our contractors and our mentors who are serving them and giving their time and effort towards them. And so we have to, have supporters who are believe in this work and want to give to see people sponsored so that they can get the help they need even though they can't afford it, and usually because directly it's because of their abuse situation. So it's really possible because we were able to raise money last year and throughout the year. And so to keep this work going in 2026, we are set to raise 55,000 by December 31st. And we are inviting you to be part of that. If that is something that you want to be part of, that's something that you can do, then I'm just inviting you to click on the link to give, and we're going to talking more about that. But this is where you can find out more info about where that money is going towards, what we have focused on that, and of course we're going to talk about that too. So one thing you'll see when you click on that link that goes to this page that talks about our goals and our impact and what we see coming in the next year is Derek's story. And so he graciously has shared his story through Be Emboldened in multiple capacities, podcasts. He was part of the conference, but he came out of a high control religious group, and he actually tried to get help in his healing journey, but had a really bad experience with even a Christian counselor who just maybe wasn't equipped. And so he was hesitant to reach out to Be Emboldened, but so glad that he did, because what he shared with us is that his words, being able to process my story as a victim of spiritual abuse with someone that knew the damage this kind of control could perpetuate was deeply healing and validating. I didn't need to try and convince the mentor that what I experienced was wrong. I didn't have to justify why I was hurt. There was a baseline understanding that I and the mentor could build from. So this kind of trauma-informed mentoring is critical for people who want to heal and are seeking that. And so, Naomi, I'd love for you to share, something from your experience working with Derek and just how we've seen the transformation in his life.
Something really special I've I've appreciated about getting to know Derek a bit is, well, and his wife. I want to bring Dulce into it as well,
Mhm.
because Derek and Dulce, they're both the faces, not necessarily behind the scenes. I think Derek's a little bit more behind the scenes these days in the honest messy life work that they do. But if you follow the honest messy life, you'll primarily see Dulce, his wife, and I believe it may have been Derek who even started it, or the two of them who started it together, and they've kind of tag teamed a bit. Oftentimes I think you'll see her face on it, but it's been really special to, one, meet someone in that kind of way. It was funny to actually meet in person. I don't know if anyone else out there has had this experience, probably, but you engage so much virtually and then you meet in person, and it feels like you actually have. It's just weird, honestly, that you haven't met in person, because you really have such a sense of the other person's presence, other than how tall they are. That can really throw you. And I just had a meeting with someone in person over the weekend, and when I met them, they're like, "I usually get told that people don't expect me to be so tall." I'm like, "Well, I did actually think that when you walked up. I didn't expect you to be so tall." But other than that, you have a real sense for someone's presence, or you can, oftentimes when you've interacted a lot. And so being able to, I mean, Derek has written some blogs for us that have been absolutely incredible. He is moving forward in his career path in a way where I think we'll be able to potentially intersect more in the coming years, which is wonderful. There are people that honestly I feel like I could reach out if I needed something. Like, it's just, and the dynamic I've had, if anyone's like, wait, that sounds inappropriate, if he, worked with beEmboldened, he wasn't my client. And so we had a different kind of relationship. He was more so volunteering. And that was my interaction with him, was more kind of volunteer manager and him doing volunteer stuff. So it's been really special to be able to go all the way through getting support and doing some volunteer work that would also helped him process, which is awesome. Like, I love when people reach out and they're wanting to volunteer and they want to offer something, and at the same time it helps them in their journey because they're getting to continue working things through, like they're getting to think it through, and that to me is just like the best. um and so getting to experience that with Derek and with Dulce in ways too has been really special. So, well, and actually, if I may, I want to jump back to something, Natasha, before you hop
Yeah.
back in, that you had said earlier. And this is so not like, please, this is not me. I want to highlight the way you phrase something just because I want to share the way my brain works. Um, in case I think it's partially because it's my survivor brain. And so that's why I want to share it with you. Otherwise, like, nobody needs to know. So this is a survivor brain response. So this is by no means, it's a common thing that people say. And I always think this when I hear it. So I want to highlight it and give a little bit more of an explanation to it. So in order for this work to continue. So I hear that when people are reaching out and they're doing end of year campaigns or whatever campaign they're doing. We're talking about end of year now, but people do, organizations need funding throughout the year, for different purposes. And so I know that when I hear that, I wonder, is that literal? Like, literally, will the organization cease? And that is some black and white thinking, but I do wonder, like, is that literally what it means? And so I want to expound on the answer to that in case you're someone who's wondering it. So, and I'm really thinking about it. To be transparent, because of the way I've set Be Emboldened up, I don't think the organization would cease to function if we did not get any end of year donations, I don't think we'd cease to function based on the finances. But here's why. Hear me out. It's because we're structured where as long as the people who can pay full price are paying full price, well, then we can do the number of hours that they require. You know what I mean? So it's like if I have 10 clients who can pay, well, then we work 10 hours. So it might become part-time versus full-time, but it's not necessarily that the whole organization would go away completely. What's going to happen instead is that we're going to make our current problem way bigger. And our current problem is that because we have such a mass, and I'm not kidding, like I have had, I mean, it's Monday. I had two more people today. We had multiple literally over the weekend. People reaching out who are needing support who do not have the financial ability to pay for services. So we currently have a decent wait list. I actually had a conversation on Friday with my team and told them that we have to currently right now, I'm like, we have to shut the wait list down and actually not take names on it anymore. Because if we put them on the wait list, I think to have integrity, we need to know we can bring them off in a reasonable time frame. Otherwise, we're setting an expectation that we cannot meet, and I'm just not going to have that. So we've got to shut it down because our current wait list with the current situation financially for the organization, I don't know if we'll clear it by the end of 2026. And that's not an exaggeration. So we definitely can't add anyone else. Another issue there is that we do have very few, but we do have a few spots actually available for, say, our one-on-one mentoring service. But in order to make sure that we don't perpetuate the issue of those who are coming to us for support, I need to make sure that none of us are financially exploiting or acting like the mission is greater than the financial need to support one's family of those who work for us. Right? Like that wouldn't be good. I can't go to them and be like, you guys, there's such a need, like just do it for free or just do it for $5 an hour or just, you know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna pass on to my team what we have so many people coming to us out of. So with that in mind, we have some spots, but I can't fill them from the wait list because I don't have the funding to pay the team. So they sit on the wait list. So the only reason, so that's kind of where we're at. And I might be getting a little ahead of kind of our topic, so we can jump back into it. But the organization wouldn't cease altogether. It wouldn't grow, that's for sure. And we definitely have more need, like I said, with the wait list. Like we've got a lot of need. We wouldn't be able to see the people who are reaching out with the financial need. And it is very possible too that I'll totally burn out, and that's why the organization would go under, is because I just wouldn't be able to sustain because I can't hire the help that I need for roles that don't directly bring in revenue. Like if I have a contractor and they're seeing someone and the person pays X amount per hour and they've got their takeaway amount, it's like, okay, well, they're getting paid. My assistant doesn't directly bring anything in, so I have to work enough hours to pay my assistant. Does that make sense? So like the conference last year was largely based on the mentoring hours that I did. That's how we mostly paid for the conference. So all of that comes into play of, oh, girls getting tired. So it's not going to be sustainable. I hope this isn't too much information. I'm hoping it just helps make sense again of, okay, the work can't continue. Can it really not continue? To a degree, it can. It's probably gonna have to be less than we're currently doing versus more than we're currently doing so that I don't actually burn out. I don't burn out anyone on my team. And those who cannot pay, we're gonna really struggle to how on earth we're gonna get them services. So it's not, it's it's just not where I want it to be. That's for sure. I don't want anyone sitting on a wait list, period, ever. If they have to be on a wait list, I'd love to see it at 6 weeks or less. That would be my goal. And I don't want anyone being referred to a different service because of an inability to pay. And I don't want any spots open on my team's calendar with someone on a wait list. Like none of that to me is acceptable. None of that's acceptable. So if you have any follow-up questions on like, wait, I'm not totally getting why that's happening or how that's happening, please don't hesitate to reach out. I would be happy to have a conversation with you or ask someone on my team to meet with you. But again, just wanted to offer clarity. Yeah, it probably would continue. But we are going to be so far behind the need.
Thanks for adding that clarity, Naomi. That's the real talk here. This is not just, you know, the prescribed words that we figured out how to say so that people give us money, but like this is really the situation. This is really what's happening, and this is why we are asking, because we believe that it matters to get people off that wait list. It matters the other initiatives that we're doing to help people, and we want to invite people to be part of making that possible through giving. So um, thank you so much. Yeah, we want to be raw and real. um, with that, I mean, I think it'd be great to talk about the Living Out Freedom Conference. I mean, that was something that you just mentioned happened because of the financial situation. And one of the big things on our list that we are looking towards in 2026 is another conference, or hopefully, maybe we'll see, right? But let's talk about what happened this September and how incredible it was to gather people together for an event that was designed for them, when so much about conferences and events are really hard and triggering for people who've experienced spiritual abuse. And just the incredible stories we've heard ever since of how people are reading their Bibles again, when they weren't able to because of what they learned, and how they were equipped and encouraged at this conference, how they wish they brought friends, and how people are already asking for another one. So, Naomi, will there be another conference?
So I would like for there to be another conference. Keep the transparency going. Happy to. My realistic, possible, reasonable goal would be to do it spring of 2027. So everyone knows. I know some people are like really hoping that it would be in 2026. I don't see how that would be possible, for several different reasons, not just financial. Just as far as like the venues are booked further out, presenters are booked further out. So I haven't not felt comfortable securing a venue without knowing that I've secured the funding for the venue as well as for the presenters. I'm like, I want to know that we've got that set aside. I mean, for the venue, you've got to pay it up front anyway, at least part of it. And then for the presenters, just knowing that was a real pressure cooker. I didn't know. I mean, I knew my sabbatical was on the line. I gambled with my sabbatical. I was like, and I with integrity, because we did some support raising. It was done quietly, just among some people that we knew to reach out to, because I'm going to have the month of January off, as my first sabbatical time since founding beEmboldened, which I'm so grateful for. And it is the generosity of some who have made that happen for me. I'm so thankful. And I had those funds put aside to cover the sabbatical. And I knew if I don't have the funding coming in for the presenters, the sabbatical money will be able to pay them, because the only option is to pay them. The option is not to not pay them. So then I would have been taking my sabbatical unfunded, and I'm not sure what that would have looked like. But I was like, I still have to take the time because the time was funded, but I might need to not get paid for it and give the funding to the presenters. So that was my plan B. So the presenters were going to get paid no matter what. If they knew this, they probably would not have even, but they didn't know this. I wasn't going to tell anybody this, of course. So this was my plan, but it was literally 4 weeks before the conference that a generous donor came in and they funded that gap amount. And so now I'm taking my sabbatical. My sabbatical will be paid. Again, I'm so grateful for that. And the presenters got paid and it all worked out. But I don't want to be in that position again if I can avoid it. And so because we've done year one, we had about 110 people come, which what that told me, this isn't a numbers thing. I don't really not there is a degree to which numbers can matter, but I'm so not hung up on the numbers, way more qualitative for what we do here at beEmboldened than quantitative. It told me though, people are willing to come. Like that's really the message I got from it was, wow, people are willing to come. There is something about this that they're wanting. They're at least wanting to give it a try and see. And then the feedback we got really was impactful for me too, to know that connections were made, that people found it worth the risk that they took, that they are wanting the opportunity to gather again. In fact, they're hoping for maybe some other smaller opportunities regionally throughout the year, which is definitely something on my radar. Side note, like I'm a big fan of that. I actually had that idea the first time like 4 years ago and have wanted to be able to head in that direction. So if we reach a point where we can, we will. So all of that being said, the feedback we've gotten is great. The presenters loved being a part of it as well, which was it's a great opportunity too for more people to learn about spiritual abuse and what being a survivor looks like and what prevention can look like. And so it's also neat whenever I ask guests on the podcast and stuff as well, everyone gets to learn together. And it's something I really value. Again, I like when things end up having this mutual element to them. Maybe you're catching on to that. So that makes me happy. And we had that too. So it was a wonderful experience. And I have ideas, especially feedback from people, which was so wonderful to get, and have some different things confirmed for myself of like, oh, it'd be really neat if we could add this in the future, if we could tweak that a little bit. And so I'm hoping we get the opportunity. So a part of the 55,000 goal we have is, I believe it's 15,000 of that to say we're booking the venue, we can pay the venue in full, which hopefully would also include some of the catering because we do like to have, of course, beverages for people throughout the day and have a snack break, as well as honorariums for presenters. So that is a chunk. And if it goes further than that, wonderful. But like that's what I think feels reasonable and sustainable and responsible for the second one. So that's a chunk of that 55,000. It wouldn't cover the whole thing, but it would do a good job of getting us going. Is she actually, Natasha, are you not here?
I think I'm here. Can you hear me?
You are here. Okay, I can hear. I was like, maybe she's actually gone. I thought you just
Yeah.
spotlighted me.
No, I did spotlight you, but now I can't get myself back, so I'm not really sure.
I
If
don't
you
know
can
how to get you back. Oh my goodness, you guys, you might have to just hear her.
so sorry. Yeah, I don't know why it's not working, but at least you can see Naomi, which is the most important thing. So I'm just gonna be the
Well,
voice.
no, I disagree. But we can flip back and forth. Sorry, everyone. It's gonna be like some Oz behind the curtain. Like, where's this other chick's voice coming from?
Yeah. I'll try to figure it out. I'm sure I can figure it
Okay.
out, but we'll just keep going.
Okay.
Naomi, I know something that also we've talked a lot about is mentoring services. And so, do you want to just break down anything additional for that for people who maybe not be knowing what mentoring services and like who served as a mentor for BE and anything else about that we haven't already covered?
Yes. Okay. So mentoring services, that's where beEmboldened started with services for people. Aside from kind of putting some educational resources out there, had we started the podcast already? I I think. Yes. The podcast was out. There was my very mediocre blog in the beginning that was out. We now have guest authors who do a wonderful job. But the blog was started, podcast was started, which has become a great resource with different conversations out there. I oftentimes hear from people that they binged a lot of the podcast episodes and then reached out for mentoring. Mentoring is oftentimes a next stop after looking at those kinds of resources. They one give information, of course, but they also can help build rapport. Like people get a feel for our views, where we're coming from, our approach, things like that. What are we about? And so then they tend to reach out for mentoring. So mentoring is a one-on-one, two-on-one, small group, something like that, where it is a private opportunity to meet with one of our mentors. Our mentors have to meet, they have a trifecta to meet, which, as you might imagine, is a little bit difficult to find. But as people are healing, they are through beEmboldened, which is really neat. Many are going on for counseling degrees and such, and maybe we'll end up, partnering in the future, which is cool. So I'm excited to see kind of where this goes in the next like 3 to 5 years. But right now we have 3 mentors on the team, and a potential fourth who we're building a relationship with. I definitely appreciate like building that relationship with someone, so that we are, again, mitigating risk there of just making sure we have a good handle on who we're bringing on the team, not just like the resume, but character and personality and all of that. So the three things that people have to have: one, they do have to be trained as a support professional. There's some variation in what that can look like. Like someone can have pastoral care and counseling bent, or someone can have the like, traditional counselor route, whether it's LPC or LMFT or LCSW, which is what mine is. So again, there could be some variation there, but being trained in that way, because it's really important for companioning alongside someone in the way that we're going to do it. Not like layperson, like we love answering questions for those who are supporting others, but in the way that we're doing it, we need a bit more. So that's one. The second one, there's got to be a biblical and theological studies training. And that is not from a certain denominational view. It's not from nothing like that. It's how do we actually read the Bible? How do we equip others to do so? How are we helping people be able to critically think while we're doing it in that trauma-informed way, knowing all that goes into it for somebody? Are we able to then again do that from a perspective of, we're not taking stands on secondary and tertiary issues. We are equipping people to be able to go investigate and make those decisions for themselves. With that being said, just a little caveat: not everyone that we serve identifies as Christian at this time, and that's totally fine. Oftentimes we are still referencing scripture just to show what was in there versus what wasn't. So it helps that person place the blame where it actually goes, which is typically on the leader, helps prevent against re-victimization, which is really important, and also gives them a better opportunity to decide if they want to choose the real Jesus or not. So the third thing that we look for is a lived experience, because we hear this over and over again. I just don't think it's something that's worth bending on. When you've got a lived experience, you just get it, and people can just tell. You're going to ask different questions. You're going to pick up on nuances that somebody else wouldn't. And yet, of course, we've got to be doing well enough in our own journey that we're not constantly getting triggered where we're like having a hard time, companioning along the side the person that we're serving. So those are the three things we look for. We've got myself on that team, Therese on that team, and Anna on that team. And we're looking at bringing a gentleman on the team as well, which would be wonderful. I know oftentimes our gentlemen would like to have a gentleman, if at all possible. Sometimes that is because of just comfort, meeting with their own gender. Sometimes it is because of the background that they came out of. While they are wishing it wasn't necessarily the case, it'd be hard to meet with a female, or maybe they feel like they're not safeguarding their relationships as they feel they ought if they're meeting with a female one-on-one. And so all kinds of reasons that absolutely make sense. And so I've been hoping that would come to be. So goal for 2026 would be to add a male to our mentoring team. So mentoring is set up largely like counseling in ways where we're booking sessions. There's some kind of rhythm, totally whatever works for somebody, as long as we can make it happen in our schedule. 45 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes. We do intensives. Those are 10 and a half hours over typically 3 to 5 days. Or sometimes I have someone right now who does one intensive session. It's 3.5 hours. They do it once a month versus meeting weekly. So they can kind of like really be present and get into it. So lots of flexibility there. And that is where we have the wait list issue, because it is less likely someone's going to jump into our BE Plus subscription, month-to-month subscription program without doing mentoring first. Now, it's not that it never happens, but it's not oftentimes not the right fit for somebody as their first thing. Depends on if they've done some other things first in their journey. So mentoring it's the main thing that people are needing. It's not just like, oh, it's a preference. It really, truly, in my initial consultations with people, Teresa's initial consultations with people, it really is oftentimes, I would say at least 90% of the time, our recommended next step, because them jumping in with a group of people just isn't going to give them what they need at that time.
Yeah. Thanks for explaining that. I think that's super helpful for people to hear, and the importance of that, which we have already talked about. Before we move into BE Plus, which is that subscription model that Naomi mentioned, I do want to just address a comment in the chat. Thank you so much for engaging in the chat. The $15,000 for the conference is just the initial startup cost to like get that going. It is definitely not the full cost of the conference. There's a lot more that gets involved with that. And so the $15,000 that is part of our $55,000 goal is just to get it initially started. So just wanted to speak to that. So B plus, if say someone comes to Be Emboldened, they've had some mentoring sessions. You said, it's not the right fit for everyone, but that's why there's also BE plus, because mentoring might not be the right fit for someone. So we've seen an increase in that subscription and people engaging, which is amazing. And so we want to continue to grow that, because the need for people to connect with other like-minded people through support groups who um, can relate to their story is just incredibly beneficial. So let's talk about the heart behind BE plus, and then what are we seeing happen through that growing membership and what you're excited about for the future.
Sure. So BE Plus came out of, as we had been around as an organization for a period of time, I noticed that some who had been doing one-on-one mentoring with us, and when I say one-on-one, again, sometimes it's a parent and a child, or two friends, or a couple, or a few friends. So it doesn't necessarily have to be one-on-one, but that like more. We'll just continue to say one-on-one. So people were going through that, and then they were just they naturally, through their healing process, reached a point where they were wanting to engage with others, but they weren't at that time going to walk into a church yet. That was on their radar maybe, but it wasn't something that they were going to be ready for. They were still needing something that was going to still be a bit smaller, that was still going to be related to their spiritual abuse journey, but they wanted to hear from other kind of peers and have more of that peer support opportunity, and the safety of it being facilitated, having cultural guidelines of how we engage with one another, and knowing that that would be monitored and brought to attention if need be. So BE Plus came pretty naturally out of me noticing, okay, we're kind of hitting a different step in the healing process with those who initially were mentoring with us. Let's go ahead and create this other option. My goal with this other option was that it be as accessible as possible. So to give an idea, if someone is paying full cost, a 45-minute mentoring session is $100. And that's right on our website. So you can go see that on our website. BE Plus, being a part of BE Plus for 1 month, is $24 for the whole month. So just to give an idea of the difference. And right now we have four different gatherings, BE Plus gatherings each month. 3 are an hour, one's an hour and a half. And we've recently added, over the past few months, more months than not, we're offering a bonus. So we had someone come in and I partnered with them and we did an art therapy opportunity. Had someone else come in, I paired with them. We did a music therapy opportunity. We are having someone come back who's in a couple podcast episodes with us on narcissism. He's coming back. He's going to do a Q&A with anyone who wants to participate in January. We have a Blue Christmas inspired event coming up next Wednesday on the 17th. So all of these are then included in BE Plus as well. On top of it, there's other opportunities, like we have Lindsay Mendenwalt, who's a published author, just has her second book, actually, pre-sale just opened up. She writes blogs for us. I contract with her for a monthly blog for BE Plus. They get discounts on other services that we offer and things like that. And there's a private Facebook group for those who want it. It's been really incredible to see different relationships form through there. Again, people are getting that peer support, the peer perspective. And it was also fun at the conference to do a meetup for those who attended who are part of BE Plus. I think we had 15 to 20 BE Plus subscribers who did attend the conference and all met up for coffee. And they're like, hey, we want more opportunities next time, which we'll totally make happen. But it was nice for them to actually meet one another face to face. And now some have a WhatsApp group together and they stay in touch. And so it's been a really special, again, oftentimes next step, not exclusively. Someone does not have to, there's no requirement to do one-on-one first. Most commonly, again, some one-on-one has been helpful, and that people are more comfortable and maybe worked through some of the things where they're like, gosh, I really need like a lot of, if someone's like, I really need an hour of airtime because I've got a lot to talk through. If you're in a group of 12 people, you're just not going to have that kind of opportunity because other people are going to chime in. They're going to piggyback. They're going to have their own questions. So again, really depends on the need of the person. So some people have done it first. It's worked out okay. I would say most have done it second, and many actually do them simultaneously. So I have quite a few people who they are doing some degree of one-on-one. Maybe it's every other week, every third week. And then they're also doing the BE Plus, and the two just pair really well together. Mm-hmm. So I love that match. And with it being the $24 a month, it's just really accessible as an add-on.
And just so you can find out more about BE Plus and just maybe even see if it's right for you, I'm just adding in the chat our link to that page on our website so you can find out more about that and see if that's something that you might want to take advantage of or someone you know might as well. So as we are raising funds like that, some of those funds are going towards helping make sure things like this can keep going, and as Naomi mentioned, right, to grow it, not just have it be what it is now. Um, so we've kind of talked around all of the vision for 2026, and so let's just give you some bullet points of what that is. And so we want to eliminate our wait lists, as Naomi mentioned. We want to hire a director of mentoring services to onboard, train, and encourage that growing team. We want to see more mentors join that team too, as we mentioned. We want to, research and write 2 new digital courses. We have so much good content that we want to produce and put out there for people. We already have 3 in our Live Free Collective. And so wanting to expand that resource of having digital courses. We also want to streamline and simplify the website. And then, like we mentioned, the initial cost for Living Out Freedom Getaway, which is the new name for our conference for future events. We want to get that going and see if we can reserve the venue and the presenters for that 15,000. Naomi, did I miss anything? Is there anything else you want to highlight for our vision for 2026?
I think I just want to, so I have been told, I'm going to talk about it anyway. I turned into a rebel at some point, but this was long ago, you guys, way before any of you knew who I was. It was at least 20 years ago when I left the cult. That's when I became a rebel. So I've been told. So I know that having to streamline and update the website is not like the most exciting thing to share about in an end of year fundraising, support raising campaign. However, I want to share why this is actually really important. It's in my top 2 stressors. The wait list is number 1. This is number 2, and it's not super behind number 1. We've just outgrown it with our services. So we actually have a couple services that are not even on the website, and we'll have to completely redo the sitemap in order to even put them on. And when we first launched the website, we actually got so much feedback. It was really sweet. We had a lot of feedback where people would be like, the website is beautiful. It's so like user friendly. It's intuitive. Like, this is great. Now we get messages of people being like, I'm confused. What do you offer? Is this a fit for me? Like, I haven't been in a cult like Naomi. So like, is this a place for me? And it's like, yes, it is 1000%. And so it's just gotten too clunky because things have continued to be added, but we need to step back. I already have what the new sitemap would be. It's going to be so much easier to navigate and some cleaned up language to just simplify everything. But building a website is a big deal. So I'm not thrilled that we will have to build another one. It's not like something I'm like excited to just do. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a beast of a project. But the last thing I want is for people to be looking for help, find our website, and then be confused as to whether or not we're the place for them. And we are. And how many people are coming who didn't write the email? We've got to be having just like, I mean, could it be above 1%? I mean, realistically, the percentage of those who are writing the email, it's probably way lower than those who are coming to the site and then just clicking off. So I want to make sure that people come to the website and they can find very quickly what we're about, who we're here to support, so they can get connected as easily as possible. Anyone who has been through what spiritual survivors have been through, we want to make it simple, efficient. It is just not what they, in a trauma state, like that is just so not what they need to be wrestling through in order to get, it almost reminds me of, okay, this might be a bad analogy, and we're live. Like, it is what it is. This isn't being edited out. It kind of makes me think of a conversation I just had with someone about reading the King James Version, which is an okay version to read. I am not saying you cannot read the King James Version, but reading the King James Version of the Bible is a lot more work to be like, okay, what is being said, so that I can get to the exegetical, hermeneutical. Like, I mean, like literally, what does this just mean in plain, simple English? So then I can be like, okay, so what's being said? And then how does this apply to today? If there, if there's some kind of application, what does this look like? It kind of reminds me of that. I'm like, I don't want our website to be the KJV version. comparison. I was like, that cannot happen. We do not need that. Okay,
Yeah.
back to you, Natasha.
Yes. Yeah. I recently heard when you're in crisis, every click matters. So we want to make it easy for people. Um, I also want to, let's see here. Actually, we've got a question in the chat. I don't know if Nat, you want to uh, speak to this or not, or if I know we have limited time here. But addressing spiritual abuse from someone leaving a faith background that is non-Christian, like Buddhist, Hindu. Have you come across that, Naomi? Is that something that is in the future for beEmboldened?
Yes and no. I'll of course elaborate on that. So we have had, let me back up. When I first founded Be Emboldened, I was not thinking exclusively people who had come from some Christian or so-called Christian, pseudo-Christian, as I refer to my own story, background. I didn't have us in that box exclusively. It's, I think, more so naturally kind of landed there for the most part, but not 100%. We have not had someone reach out from, if I'm thinking like sort of a Christian inspired, where the Bible is involved. If there's a movement where the Bible is not at all involved, I think the only example I have is New Age. We have and do have people who have come from a New Age background who have come to us for support. But otherwise, there's always some element of the Bible being wielded within the person's experience. So would we expand? It's possible. The reason I'm like, okay, what would that look like as I'm verbally processing this is I would need to know that the people on our team were experts in that area to be able to do it well. And with our growth currently and the heaviness that like the mass amount of need we're already seeing, I don't see it happening soon. I think is how I would put it. I don't see it happening soon, but it's not something that I would be closed to. We are very upfront, of course, that we're coming from a Christian worldview. So if someone was like, well, I came out of a Buddhist background, here's what I went through, and I was treated horribly, I'm going to come from a Christian worldview in anything I say because it's just the lens through which I look at everything else. Even as a therapist, my Christianity comes first and then I'm using those skills. So if someone's okay with that, I would say 100% go ahead and reach out now. Um, but it's interesting because it's not someone like disentangling from Christianity. They're disentangling from something else with someone who is, upfront about being Christian. If they're open to that, wonderful.
Yeah. I can imagine there could still be a lot of crossover, a similar experience, and a lot of helpful tools that would be useful to people who are coming from different backgrounds.
Yeah, I think the difference I'm seeing is if it was, say, using again Buddhism as an example, if it's a Buddhist background and they're talking with someone who's Christian, if they're trying to disentangle Buddhism to then continue being Buddhist, that could be an odd combination. So that's from like, how would that work? Or not work. And so I think, again, knowing we're coming from a Christian worldview would be really important. And if we're talking then about disentangling beliefs and looking at other beliefs, again, we're going to come from that background. If they are like, no, I'm trying to work through this specific element of abuse that happened, well, within their framework, I'd have to know within their framework, within their worldview, was that actually acceptable? And then do we actually believe it's ethical? So again, there's different steps to the process. I would probably love it, to be honest. I'd probably love it. But as far as taking it on in a big way, maybe TBD, maybe down the road. I love that you brought it up because you actually, whomever asked that question, you actually, again, you touched on something that I kind of realized just sort of happened over the years where I was like, I like intended for that to happen. It just sort of has been the natural progression of things. There are things that are happening intentionally. And then there's some things where you're just kind of like reading the room of what the need is. And so this is where it's landed. But yeah, I could see there being some shifts along the way.
Yeah. Hey, we're 5 years in, who knows what the next decade will hold. Um, let's see. I know we're coming down to the wire here, but I think what might be really key to touch on is the Live Free Collective, the digital courses that we launched, Rebuilding with Biblical Literacy, and the Can I course, which addresses 7 common questions that people ask. And so those courses are, and that those were the second and third of our flagship was the Rebuilding After Religious Abuse. So those courses are available on what is called the Live Free Collective, which is our digital course library resource. So Naomi, let's talk about the future of BE Live Live Free Collective.
Yeah, so I've been having a lot of course, wrapping up this year, heading into next year, a lot of conversations about what do we continue to build? What has the impact been? Does it seem like it's worthwhile? It's helping people, they're wanting it. And digital courses were something that just came up actually in a conversation earlier today. And here's why I still think they're important. One, we are getting great feedback on them. There is
Mhm.
something about having 4 survivors in a room and having the mix of the direct equipping of giving information and the authentic, genuine conversation among 4 survivors where you just get to connect with various parts of different people's stories. It's just a really I love the model, and it's been a really helpful model for people. So I would continue recording them in that format. And then this year, for the first time, we offered what's called a full access version, where we had a Q&A every week instead of just a Q&A at the very end of the whole course. And that did a lot of things. One, we got to answer a lot more questions. And also, it created a lot more connection, and sense of connection. So it was something that even myself and Michael, who co-authored the 2 courses that came out this year and was a guest in one of them, guest survivor in one of them, we really looked forward to it. Like, it was so great to see people and come to know people a bit again in this safe, structured, facilitated way with some really healthy boundaries around it. So great opportunity for survivors who are kind of like wanting to dip their toe in, again, with like being around peers, etc. So a couple of the reasons I'm really a big fan of the courses is because it gets us outside of time zone restrictions, which is huge because we have clients all over the world. And so there are things that, I mean, we've had people literally attend Q&As in the middle of the night at like 2 a.m. when they've got young kids to be like, I want to show up and I want to ask these questions. So we want to make these resources as accessible as possible. Digital courses help to do that. And again, they are pretty spendy to make. They take a lot. I mean, when you think about actually writing them and then getting the 4 survivors, the production team, like all together in a studio, the editing time. I mean, it's 2 days worth of footage, all of the edit, 2 or 3, all the editing, all this. It's just a lot. Like, again, it's a big project. But once it's done and it's paid for. And so I have a lot more flexibility to discount that or even give a full 100% discounted code when somebody needs it. So, and then as funds come in for it, it's like, well, now it helps to build the next one. We can have this kind of domino effect in a good way. So there's a lot that I really love about the digital courses. So we do plan at this time to continue to build them. We know the next 4 topics that we would like to do. We are to make sense to kind of write at the same time, side by side. So our goal is to write both of those, pilot them with a live group, a live virtual group before we would move into recording most likely in 2027. So that's our plan for right now. And that is something too, where typically when we've done it, there's some additional support raising for phase 2. What we have included in this budget is that phase 1 of getting them written and doing the pilot, not the actual production. The production and the editing and then marketing and getting it out on the website is a whole another thing. But this would at least be like, okay, we can go ahead and write it. We can keep this moving.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, super important. Well, I just want to throw up on the screen just to kind of summarize, our vision for what we're looking at in 2026, and that this is, what we're wanting to see happen. And so, if any of this resonates with you, if you feel like this is something that you want to see happen, we invite you to be part of that by giving to our 55,000 that we're trying to raise before December 31st, to see these things move forward, to grow, to expand, to really meet the need that we're seeing out there. So appreciate you all joining us for this time today. We've already raised 6,706, and so share this with others. Share this with people who you think might resonate with this mission too. We are really grateful for every single person who has given, whether it's been $10 or 10,000. Um, the generosity has made the 2025 impact possible, and we're really excited to see what 2026 will hold. So this would not be happening without the donors that help make this go forward. As Naomi clarified, exactly what that means is like we want to grow, we want to see the need met, and we need people's generosity to do that. So thank you for considering that. And if, of course, if you have any questions about this or want to follow up, you can email us at hello@beEmboldened.com and say hello. Naomi, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, for my final words, actually, I'm gonna Mr. K, I want to respond to your last question because I love that question. I don't want to miss it. So make this the last one so that I don't make Natasha stay over. But so EQ and vulnerability as a priority. I could not care about this more. This is really important, and it's important from every angle. It's important for myself and my team's continued growth. It's important for survivors as they're healing, for their growth. And it's really important too for us to be able to identify anyone that we're going to decide to have a relationship with, we're going to work for, if we're going to be a part of a church, when we're looking at church leadership and what that's going to look like, being able to have some kind of assessment, right? Have the ability to be like, okay, where's this person at in regards to their EQ? And what depth of relationship can I go to and have it be healthy, have it be safe, have it hopefully be sustainable based on that assessment? And again, to be able to do that well. And one of the things that I like to teach about, and it's in our Rebuilding After Religious Abuse course, it's a boundary scale. It's a 1 through 5 boundary scale, and it would tie into what you're talking about. So big fan, super important again in all of these directions. And again, I even have a tool then to help people gauge like, okay, if I am talking with someone and I'm sensing this is where they're at in their EQ, if we're thinking about a 1 through 5 scale and one's going to be more of our lighter, five's going to be our most vulnerable, we're not going to go to a 5 with that person because they're not equipped to be able to do that with us. And so we're going to get wounded. So we're able to make informed decisions in a way that maybe we were not equipped to do before. And in all fairness, this is something that's learned, right? So being able to help equip people 1000%. So thank you for that question.
Great question. Yeah, thanks for all the engagement and the questions. It's been great to be here and sharing with you today about being emboldened. All right. Well, may this season bring you joy and healing, and we look forward to seeing you in 2026. Have a good night.